Welcome to the Women in Planning Division's 2024 Leadership Webinar. I'm Caroline Dwyer, and I am the current chair of the Women in Planning Division's Executive Committee. I'm joined by lots of other members of our Executive Committee. You all can either drop your names in the chat or change your Zoom name if you want, if you're a current member, and then everyone else who is here, if you don't mind just going ahead and introducing yourself in the chat, that would be great. So just quickly on the agenda today, I'm going to give a brief history of the division, talk a little bit about the division's mission and purpose, give you an idea of where we are at in terms of members and where our members come from, talk about the division's governance, the nominations and elections process, talk about finding the right fit for some of these roles and the different levels of effort and expectations, and then hopefully we'll have lots of time for Q&A. So if you do have questions, just maybe hold them till the end. We are going to record this and share this. So if you miss something, don't worry, we can loop back to it at the end. But just briefly, an overview of our division. Women in Planning is one of the oldest divisions in APA. We have been around for about 42 years now, and the division was founded and created by and for women in the planning profession as a means to advocate for women in planning and advocate for the needs of women in our communities. Over that 40 plus years, the needs of women in planning and women in general have certainly evolved, but our mission really has remained the same. And that mission is providing a national network supporting women in the planning profession and advocating for the needs of women in planning practice. In our bylaws, we have a whole bunch of different purpose statements listed in there. We do a lot more than just these, though. So essentially, our primary purpose is promoting and addressing issues facing women in planning, promoting and advocating for gender parity within the planning profession, eliminating the salary wage gap, making sure that there are equitable numbers of women in planning, especially at the highest levels of planning and honors in our profession, including the fellows of the American Institute of Certified Planners, ensuring that we can promote the professional development of women in APA, supporting and guiding research that helps to better understand the needs and support the needs of women in planning. And most importantly, facilitating connections within the planning practice among and between women, connecting women to other organizations and resources to make sure that we all have what we need to succeed. So currently, just a quick snapshot, we have just over 1,600 members in our division. I can say that about 10 years ago, we only had around 200. So we've had a huge growth, and that's really thanks to some great leadership that we've had over the last 10 years, the folks who came before me, and I am just stepping into some big shoes to keep things moving forward. But we've had tremendous growth. We have members in over 10 countries. Over 450 of our members are AICP certified, and 43 of our members hold the FAICP designation, with 10 of those just being inducted this past or about 2 weeks ago in Minneapolis at the National Planning Conference, which was really exciting as we try to grow the numbers of women in that association. So just quickly thinking about the governance of our division and the reason that we've convened this webinar. So our division is governed by an executive committee of volunteers. We currently have nine seats on our executive committee and one ex officio non-voting member who is the immediate past chair. The division's executive committee manages all of the business and programs of the division, communicates plans and decisions with our members, provides communications for us to communicate with our members and members to communicate with us, and basically meets all of the administrative requirements that APA provides to us. So we have to have a work plan each year and a budget. So we do that every year to use the dues that our members provide to us in ways that support the needs of our members. We have a robust slate of events and programming at the National Planning Conference every year. And then we also provide lots of programming and member benefits throughout the year, including webinars and professional development opportunities, networking events, special programming for Women's History Month. We have a book club. We have a mentorship program that will be relaunching soon. We have a FAICP nomination support program, and lots of different funding awards, scholarships, and other opportunities to support our members. So essentially, though, our division is all volunteer led. Everyone is no one's paid to do this, so we all do it together, and it takes a lot to keep this division moving forward, especially as we continue growing. Our bylaws state that all of our executive committee positions have to be reelected from our division's membership every 2 years. Every officer must be a division member in good standing, and an APA member in good standing as well, which I think basically just means you're not behind on dues or things like that. And then in addition to our elected positions, we also have a number of committees. So we have a communications committee, membership committees, an FAICP nomination committee, an elections committee, a national planning conference committee, and several other committees that sort of come and go as needed based on different events and programming. Our officers of the executive committee at a minimum are required to attend a monthly executive committee meeting. That's usually about an hour and a half to discuss and vote on any division business. We have to have a quorum in order to vote on business, so it's important that folks can participate. We typically will reassess the day and time of those meetings when we convene a new executive committee, so that we can make sure that we have a day and time that meets everybody's needs based on our busy schedules. So right now is our regular meeting time, Friday at noon Eastern. However, we will take a look at that at the turn of the new year when we have new committee members to make sure that we find a day and time when everyone can participate. We have additional meetings as needed. Committees also meet as needed to discuss programs and planning and things like that. And I'll go through some of the more specific responsibilities of the individual positions in just a few minutes later in this presentation. But just quickly kind of give you an overview of the election timeline. So we participate in what APA calls the consolidated election. So basically you will get a ballot. Everybody who's a member gets a ballot at some point, usually around July. And that will have all of the positions that you are eligible to vote for. So that'll have anything in your chapter. It'll have any divisions that you're a part of. Sometimes there are board or AICP commission seats on that consolidated election ballot. But for women in planning members, you will see all of our positions will be open on that ballot this year. So as I mentioned, officers of the division do have to be current members of both APA and the Women in Planning Division in good standing. Unfortunately, members who have a division only membership are not eligible for elected office, and that is in our bylaws. And then newly elected officers assume office on January 1st. So that is at the new year. So there's, about a 4 to 5 month rollover period where we usually try to have, our new members who are elected and our outgoing board members overlap a little bit so that we can exchange some knowledge and information about process and responsibilities and things like that. Our bylaws do have term limits. So the chair role has a term limit of 2 terms. Those are, it doesn't matter if it's consecutive or non-consecutive, you cannot serve more than 2 terms. As chair, I am currently finishing my 1st term, so I am eligible for another term as chair and do intend to nominate myself for that position unless somebody else steps forward and is highly interested in taking on that role. And then all of our other elected seats have a term limit of 3 terms. So that's also, again, consecutive or non-consecutive, doesn't matter. We do have some folks who have been in roles for 3 terms who are possibly either going to roll off the committee or roll into other roles, which does happen quite frequently. You know, people will start in one position and then move into a different position. So that, you know, we see that quite a bit. But what we do typically try to do is a little bit of balancing, you know, once we understand who's interested in positions and who, you know, has to move out of a role or who is interested in trying something else, we kind of take a look at the big picture and figure out the best way to fit folks in who are interested. So, you know, I would try to think about it as like, are you interested in this opportunity as a whole? And we can kind of work with you to find something that is the right fit based on your interests and your available time commitment. I'll talk about this in just a minute, but some of the roles do have more of a time commitment, I would say, and some other sort of metrics that I've tried to put together to give you a better idea of what the level of effort is for the various roles on the committee. But just if you are interested, even if you're maybe interested, not sure, still thinking about it, that's okay. I have created a Google form, a short form that you can fill out. I'll get to that in just a minute. That basically just tries to get a better understanding of what you might be interested in. You know, the type of time commitment you can dedicate to the division if you nominate yourself for an elected position, and just to kind of get a better idea so that our past chair, who also chairs our election committee, can kind of slate candidates. So sitting members obviously can't be part of the election committee because that presents some conflicts of interest. So our past chair, who's a non-voting member, does chair that committee, and that is part of our division's bylaws. And that is Corinne Wendell. And she, you will be communicating with her if you decide that you're interested in pursuing an opportunity with a division. So basically, if you are interested, like I mentioned, I'll get to that, a QR code I have where you can scan, that'll take you right to that form. If you then decide to continue moving forward, if we're able to figure out a slate that would work for you and the division, and you want to move into nominating yourself, APA will have a online candidate portal that you will nominate yourself. Essentially, you submit it's a brief like bio position statement. It's nothing like super involved, that then goes into that portal. We then kind of slate our candidates and submit a final ballot to APA, at which point they enter all of that into this consolidated election portal. And then that will open, I think, late July, end of July. And then voting basically goes for nearly the whole month of August. APA pushes out some information to remind people to vote. You'll see emails, things like that from APA. You are welcome to campaign. We are not bound by the same rules as APA board or AICP candidates. So there are no restrictions on letting folks know that you are running, and you're able to let, you know, other WPD members know that, or let them know why they should vote for you. Sometimes we have contested seats, sometimes we don't. It kind of depends on who is interested in participating, who is sticking around again for another term. But, you know, we really do try to find a place for everyone who's interested. In addition to those elected positions, there's also a spot on that Google form where you can indicate if maybe you're just interested right now in one of those volunteer committees. That's great too. We always need lots of help. So you can note that as well, and we will definitely be in touch with you. So that's like a great place to start too, if you're not quite sure or don't know if you have the time to commit to a full role. Those are just as helpful to us, those committees, as some of the elected positions. So then after the voting, APA will certify all the ballots and send us the results, and we will share those with our membership. And as I mentioned, there's kind of that 4-month period where we have some overlap between folks who know that they're going to be moving into a position and folks who may be moving out of a position, where we can do some onboarding to make sure that when January 1st rolls around, you are ready to go. So again, just kind of thinking about, the different seats on the committee. Like I said, we have 9 that are elected, plus the ex officio past chair seat that is an elected position. And, there is kind of like a variations in the amount of time. Experience, I would say, is more sort of, do you understand like how the divisions work, APA's structure, just experience with leadership in general. I don't think any of these really, I would say, aside from the chair, just because there is some institutional knowledge about the division that's helpful to have, would preclude anybody from taking on any of these roles, even if you have no experience whatsoever. All of the roles are collaborative in nature, some more so than others. Some, are functions that you're able to sort of perform independently, like balancing our financial budgets and recording meeting minutes that you don't necessarily need somebody else to participate in to complete. And then special skills is, again, like I would view this not as like something that should, prevent you from pursuing something. I think everybody who volunteers has a special skill in wanting to be involved, which I think will help you no matter which of these things you might choose to pursue. But there are a couple things like, if you're going for the director of finance, maybe it's helpful to sort of understand like how balancing a budget works. Again, not necessary, but helpful. Likewise, communications is a pretty labor-intensive role. So if you have experience with, like email software or other methods of social media, pushing messages out, things like that, it's helpful. Not required, but helpful. Again, we can kind of backfill as needed. The time commitments definitely vary, and I would also say that like this is sort of an average, like across the year. There are some of the positions definitely have more of a time commitment at certain times of the year, or like, our funding and finance director, when we have scholarships out, obviously that's going to be more time required. But when we don't have active funding opportunities, it's a little quieter. Some things like programs where we're really pushing things all year long. Communications, that's another thing that is like constantly, needed and doesn't ever really stop. So some of them I would say are like the time commitment maybe is more consistent versus like more in general. So, but then again, like there's things, like administration or finance that are just less, I would say, all the time. There's sort of, more concerted periods of time when you might have a lot to do. Again, it's really what you make of it. Like you could probably be like a superstar financial director who just wants to like create reports constantly and, is showing us different ways to analyze and assess information. Margaret, not that you're not a financial superstar. That was not a dig. Margaret wears 2 hats currently. She is both our director of finance and the chair of the city planning and management division. So that may give you an idea of like what that time commitment looks like. So she's able to manage both of those things. But, again, it's like, it's a lot of what you make of it. We, encourage people to think of things that they want to do and try to do it. You don't necessarily have to wait for us to tell you to do a thing. Obviously, there's some requirements, like we have to have a budget and we have to, responsibly manage our finances and keep our meeting minutes and things like that. But in terms of like programming or ideas for attracting members or new ideas for engaging with our different chapters or exciting ways to communicate with members, you know, those are all things that our volunteer leaders, you know, dream up and make happen. And we all try to support that in the best ways that we can. But I am going to post on our website a more specific breakdown of these different roles and the specific responsibilities and tasks that you would typically see in each of these roles. Again, you know, we do try to balance these, our slate of candidates based on what's available or based on who's interested and what seats are open. And we always will support anyone, even if, you know, they're not really sure if funding and financial support is what they thought they'd be doing. You know, we can help get you up to speed and provide the support you need to make something work. So hopefully I'm gonna mostly stop talking for a minute, but here is a QR code that you can scan. This will just basically help us get a better idea of who's interested, what roles you might be interested in. I would say, like, even if you're not super sure, like you're on the fence, that's okay. Like, go ahead and fill it out, submit it. That way we can kind of get in touch with you and figure out something. Or if there's, I promise there's always a way for somebody to get involved. Even if, you know, you're like, I have 1 minute a week, there's probably something we could find. So do fill that out. It's short, really just your name and your email and, you know, kind of some check boxes for things you might be interested in. And we will reach back out to you. Corinne will be doing the slating of candidates once we sort of have a better idea of who is interested, who has questions, who is, you know, not quite sure what they want to do, but would like to do something. And then we will, you know, work with everyone to figure out the best path forward. And I will also, we'll post this again on social media and on our website. And this webinar is also being recorded. So if you miss this QR, don't panic. But anyway, I am hopefully done doing a lot of talking. We do have other members of the executive committee on the call who can help answer questions. So I'm going to turn the screen off right now. If you do have a question, you can use the raise the hand function and we can call on you just to avoid everybody trying to talk at the same time. Let me stop sharing my screen. Awesome. So do folks have questions? You could also put a question in the chat. That's okay too. We can answer them that way.
Caroline, there's one in the chat now.
Oh, great. Yes.
It's just a person asking to confirm if they're 2-year positions.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I forgot to say that. They are, yes, 2 years. Yeah. And then every 2 years, all of the seats go up for re-election.
So just to confirm, every seat is open.
That's right.
For January 1st. Okay. And you would use the time between April 30th or whenever the election is complete to help train that person up. Okay. What kind of commitment level is required for that?
I mean, typically it's not huge. It again kind of depends on the role and depends on like how gung-ho you are about like jumping in feet first come January 1st, right? I think some roles have more like specific things that need to be like walked through and described, like financial stuff. There are some budgeting things and, you know, walking through that type of information and, you know, showing you where APA provides us with information. I mean, honestly, like a few hours, I think, like between, you know, September to December, like I say, like maybe try to get to 1 or 2 meetings just to sit in and listen, you know, the monthly meetings if possible, but it's not a huge time commitment. There's not like a massive learning curve, I guess, is like the bottom line. A lot of people come into these positions with like, I came into the communications position with no experience on the committee. So like
But
Yeah.
are some of the board members going to try and take other positions? So there's a little bit of continuity?
There is, yes.
Okay.
So that's part of the slating process, like, is, we do have folks who want to stay and are interested in staying in their positions. They are still up for re-election. It doesn't matter. We have to put them out to a vote, regardless if somebody wants to stay or not stay. Again, we try to see who's interested in different roles and try to figure out where we currently have some gaps or openings. We have folks who have hit some term limits on individual positions who have to move into a different role. So there's a little bit of flexibility in where people sit specifically. But yeah, I think, let me see. I want to say 4 or 5 folks are planning to stay. So it's not like a mass exodus.
Mm-hmm.
And most people also everybody's around too, we don't have to run away the minute January 1st strikes on the clock. So, is that helpful?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Caroline, there's a
Yes.
question about limitations on students being in elected positions or on a committee. I think the general answer to that one would be that so long as you're a member and in good standing, regardless of your status as a student or a professional,
Yeah.
is that there are opportunities for you to be elected to various positions or to serve on a committee wherever your interest is in participation. That's
right. Yes. Yeah, we used to have a specific seat for student engagement that we actually combined. Yeah, I think the only requirement really is that you're a member of APA and the division. I see that there's a question in here, Emily, too, about travel. The chair is the only position that has required travel for the division. Everybody else's travel is voluntary. So for the chair, there is budgeted funding in our division budget. Because, for example, the National Planning Conference, the chair is required to attend the annual divisions council business meeting and a few other leadership things. So we provide travel funding for the chair to attend those meetings. Oh, here's a good question. So I guess, all right, how about a few examples of division success? Or what has been a motivation to serve as a leader in the division?
I can answer if that's okay.
Please.
All right. So sorry, everybody. I'm not turning my camera on because I look awful. But Kate Wentz, I am the director of programs, and I'm currently in my 3rd term as director of programs. So I am transitioning out of this position, regardless of if I decide to run for re-election or transition completely off the board. I'm still not 100% decided as I'm welcoming my first child into the world in about a month, which is exciting and also terrifying. And of course, with the time commitment that we've talked about today, starting a new family, those are some of the things that I'm considering. And, it's certainly not a unique position for a lot of women in professional roles or in a professional capacity. So I think that it's important to kind of talk about that. But when I first started with Women in Planning, I attended the National Planning Conference in 2018, and I attended the annual business meeting because I wanted to meet some more like-minded women in the profession. And I had at the time been in a position where I was seeking leadership opportunities outside of a work setting and outside of my professional capacity in the job that paid me money. And so I decided that spending some energy and focusing some time on focusing on women's issues in planning, as well as supporting women in the profession, was a way that I wanted to be involved in seeing some change in the profession that I was a part of. And so I took the opportunity to run. I was elected for director of programs, and I've been in that position since 2019. Um, so it's been a really exciting opportunity for me. I've seen the division grow over the last 6 years in some really incredible ways. But I think for me, as director of programs, some of the really amazing things that I've been able to be a part of and support the division with have been the mentoring pilot program that we did, which I thought was very successful. And we are looking to continue that success forward with some lessons learned and bring that back to our division membership, as well as, a variety of programs that we've been able to put out and support our members with, both at the webinar level, but also at the National Planning Conference and with Women's History Month and the programming that we've really focused on. And I'd say the last 3 to 4 years, putting out some really comprehensive content with support from all of the executive members to make that a really successful program. So those are some of the things for me that being in a position of leadership has offered. I will say, based on the experiences that I've had, I've been able to leverage them into leadership opportunities in my professional career. And so as a young professional, being a part of this division has helped me advance my career as well, in a professional capacity, which I think is important for folks who are interested in those kinds of opportunities as well.
Thanks, Caitlin. Other exec members want to share anything?
Yeah, I can. Oh, Brittany and I got off at the same time. Brittany, you want to go
Go
after
for
me?
it, Bethany.
Okay, fabulous. All right, hi everyone. I'm Bethany Bella, the Director of Communications for Women in Planning. And I actually began volunteering with the division 2 years prior to running for the Director of Communications role. So I was a student at Ohio State University studying planning. I actually got connected with Corinne through the Knowlton School Alumni program, and then found out about the division through that connection, which was super awesome. And I'm very grateful for all of Corinne's leadership, mentorship, as well as everybody on the division's exec. So I felt like I wanted to step into the Director of Communications role. I actually had some journalism and graphic design experience from my undergraduate days. So I think this executive committee is a really awesome opportunity to bring skills or skill sets or interests that you have, sort of pairing them with my personal interest in connecting with other women in the planning profession. So I think sort of my journey into the exec committee is one that you can model for yourself. Like I said, I started volunteering with just the communications committee and then stepped into sort of the formal leadership role. So it's been really great to be a part of, and can't wait to be a participating division member for the rest of my planning career.
Hey, so I'm scrolling back up to the question, so I'll make sure I cover it. Brittany Griffin, I've met a few of you. I'm the current director of membership. I first got involved in WPD with the kickoff mentorship program. That was my first exposure to WPD. And then I messaged Corinne one day, and it was right before an election, and I got on the slate. And so this is my first round, I guess my first 2 years as director of membership. And the reason I wanted to join was I thought we as a division could grow a lot more than we were growing. The directorship at the time, though great, wasn't doing enough to grow the membership. This position was kind of stagnant, and it didn't have a lot of time dedicated to it. And my goal was just originally 100 members the first year and 100 members the next year. We've almost hit 500 members in a year and a half. That's why I came into membership and I said, we need to be getting more women into this since we're a minority. and APA is not listening to us. So the more women we get, the more hands we have to raise. So the membership position has kind of evolved. It does have more time involved with it now because you will be emailing people individually, and you use the current division members to gain new division members. So definitely word of mouth. I thought we could offer more to our division members, more things to do per month and more connections. So that's why we started the book club, which is 300 people strong now. We have a regular 20 to 30 that attend, and Cassandra's one of them. And then we started our monthly coffee breaks. And the great thing about the coffee breaks is we have anywhere between 20 to 60 members that attend these. And it gives us a chance to connect with other divisions. So the main reason I joined was when I thought we could do more. We're planners, we're not meant to sit at our desks. So we should actually, if you're elected into a role, you've got to put as much time and sweat into it as possible to make it work. So
yeah, Brittany is crushing our membership and has really revived our moribund book club that was languishing on Facebook for several years that we couldn't get control back from because you can't actually contact anyone at Facebook. So I'm really excited about all those initiatives. And again, like these are, I think, examples of things that, you know, Brittany brought into the role. Like these weren't things that we necessarily asked her to do. So I think there's a lot of room for, you know, creativity, self-motivation, you know, trying things. If they don't work, that's okay too. I see there's a couple of questions about in-face opportunities and then also upcoming priorities and initiatives. So we do, because we're a national level organization, we do not typically have a lot of face-to-face opportunities as a division. However, we do provide funding through our work plan for local events, and we're always happy to support you know, state level or local level women in planning initiatives, programs, events, as long as they're aligned with our mission. So, you know, we are always happy to promote and support those types of interactions if there are, you know, more localized groups of people who want to do things like that. As for upcoming priorities and initiatives, so as Caitlin mentioned, we are looking to relaunch our mentorship program, which was hugely successful. Probably the reason we've kind of had it on the back burner for a while is because it is going to be a big initiative because it was so popular. You know, we're kind of trying to figure out the best way to administer and facilitate that. But our last round of doing that was extremely successful. I know like multiple people who are still not just like in communication with their like mentor or mentee, but like, you know, very close with that person. It really established some nice relationships and networking opportunities. So we're pretty excited to bring that back. You know, I think our priorities are always going to be figuring out how to best advocate for women in this profession. We are still falling short in places like women at the upper levels of leadership, women's salaries compared to men's. So, you know, continuing to advocate for some of that. In 2025, there will be another nomination round for the fellows of the American Institute of Certified Planners. So we will be trying to recruit nominees, division nominees for that. We had a really useful webinar, I think, a few years back called The Road to FAICP that I'm hoping we can kind of update and push out again to get folks thinking about those opportunities so that we can kind of start to close the gap between men and women in that particular group. Let's see what else. I mean, we always have so many different programs going on. Another one that is of personal interest to me is our past chair has just authored and released a book called Ava Tanner, the City Planner, and it is focused on youth aged 4 to 11 to introduce them to planning as a career and just a thing that exists in the world, which I think is a huge step towards expanding that planning pipeline and, you know, getting new people into the profession. So one of my goals is to get that book in as many schools and libraries as possible. And I'm hoping we can leverage the division as a way to do that. Yeah, and I mean, we also this year, thank you, Corinne, there's now a link to Ava in the chat if you are inclined to purchase a copy or just want to check it out. We have our member survey coming up this summer, and that is where we take a lot of inspiration for our programming. So we will look to that and those responses to figure out what our members need and want and in terms of programs and events and educational opportunities, and try to direct our efforts that way. And then the other thing that we've been sort of working on, and I've been working on quite a bit, is collaboration with the other, what we would call population-based divisions. So Latinos in planning, tribal and indigenous planning, planning in the Black community division, Asian and Pacific Islander division. I think there's one that I'm forgetting, maybe. We are women in planning, and trying to figure out how to mutually support each other, because most of those divisions are much smaller than women in planning. However, we know that there are definitely representation challenges in planning as a profession and our organization. So figuring out how we can kind of work together to LGBTQ, that's the one I'm forgetting. Yeah, there's one more. To mutually promote and support each other, just in terms of providing resources. Brittany, LGBTQ wants to do a coffee and conversation, so I'll connect with you on that also before I forget. And yeah, so that's something, just collaborating on things where we can, pushing out more scholarships. There's a lot. We have a lot in the hopper. I have a long list of things that I'm hoping we get to. And then starting to think about, I know it's wild, but next year's National Planning Conference, because we know that calls for proposals are going to go out soon, and starting to think about what type of educational programming we can provide that will, align with the division's mission. One thing that I'm thinking that I would like to do this year too is, we talked about this maybe at our business meeting, but some kind of support drop-in session for session proposal writing or framing. We do quite a bit of it, and I know it's hard for people to get their foot in the door. There's definitely an art to what reviewers are typically looking for. So that's something I think maybe to try to expand the educational programming. And then Corinne and I think I've been talking the last couple of years about a Wikipedia, not hackathon type thing at NPC next year, where we do a group effort to get as many women in planning and allied professions into online, encyclopedias and databases as a group effort. So some kind of event focused on that at next year's National Planning Conference. Yeah, so there's a lot. And if there's an idea you have, we want to know, we are happy always to help support and promote initiatives, programs, events, things that our members would like to see. If you have an idea for a webinar that you want to present, we're happy to support and promote that too. These are all things that we can do. So, I think the takeaway is that there's a lot of ways to participate. We love having, people participate on the executive committee, but if that's not a commitment you are ready or want to take on, totally understand that too, but don't feel like that prevents you from participating in other ways. Cassandra.
Thank you. So you mentioned that membership survey will be coming out, and that will probably answer this question for me. But are there any demographics that you're trying to enroll in the division? Is there any specific sectors, public, private, areas of planning that you're looking to grow specifically, or that you're looking to capitalize on in the division?
That's a good question. I don't know how much data we collect on that. in our survey if we, you know, look specifically at the different sectors or if there's like a huge difference. Yeah, as Brittany mentioned, I think especially in leadership, we're always looking to or for more diversity. I personally, I think that there are barriers to leadership participation that make it challenging for a lot of people to volunteer in a role just based on the way that the organization of the divisions and the interaction with APA. I think it's challenging. It's hard for people to dedicate that much time, especially the way that they ask for it to be dedicated. But that's definitely something we can look to when we're doing our survey, thinking about asking questions. Brittany, I don't know if like in terms of membership, you have other thoughts about that beyond like the diversity factor. Thanks, Cassandra.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's it.
Oh, yeah, we definitely, Sandra's been in our book club. So we've actually spoken about this in book club because we're reading Invisible, Invisible Women Biases in the Data's World. So what we've discovered in looking back at our previous surveys is we didn't ask for enough data.
Okay. Yeah.
We should ask for more data.
Yeah, more data.
And with that more data, we can make a decision, but definitely reviewing our membership list and talking with people, we need more people of color, definitely.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound weird because we are women in planning, but we're open to everyone. We do lack men, and you always want allies, so we lack men because the men I've spoken to that have attended our book club don't feel welcome because they feel like it's only for women in planning.
Okay.
So that's another one. And then if you do look at the job set, we've got an even amount of public private planners, so that I do know.
Interesting.
So that's split fairly evenly.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, this is another thing I've spoken with our other like division chairs about too, especially in the population-based divisions, is that we often feel like they're like, it's almost like we're cannibalizing each other a little bit, right? It's like, well, if I am, you know, a Latinx woman who is non-binary, or I guess it would, you know, a non-binary person who's Latinx, like which division do I pick one? Do I pick all of them? Like a lot of people can't do all of them, you know? So we are kind of forcing people into like buckets of identity that isn't always useful to our divisions, and we all have a hard time like attracting volunteers, and you know, literally even getting people to apply for scholarships is hard, which is like, it's like we're giving money away and you can't get people to even just fill out a form. But I honestly think a lot of that is because we're all doing it at the same time, and it's all for sort of these like relatively small amounts of funding. So I am hopeful that we can find some ways to like collaborate on some of that, and think about like, how valuable is it to be separated versus like some other organizational structure where you could be part of like all of those things, but maybe there's like subgroups for different interests, right? Like instead of fighting each other constantly, not fighting, I mean, none of us are fighting, but like, there's a limited pool of resources and we all need them. So. Yeah, shared newsletter is a great idea. I love that. I can definitely recommend that on our next chair get together. Let's see. I'm trying to think if I missed any.
Can men serve on the board?
If they remember.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I was muted. That's a good question, though. That's a really good question.
Yeah, I mean, there is no restriction. I mean, you have to be an APA member and a Women in Planning member. So I guess there could be some hostile takeover. We should keep an eye out for that.
They're currently afraid to join our book club. Like we have maybe 2 or 3 that attend every now and then. So like, I mean, if you can get them involved in membership, I've been trying to get some men, some good ally men, because, you know, unfortunately, sometimes it feels like APA listens to them more. But if you can get some good men to join us and be allies, it'd be great. But they're even afraid of our book club.
There's so many thoughts about that. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I would argue like anybody who works with women like will find value in this organization, or you know, encounters women has women in their community, which is probably 100% of the men in our organization, right? Like, you know, I agree. I think there's definitely room for that, and it would probably benefit some folks. I don't know, like, I love the idea of allies. And actually, I think that was something else we talked about too, in terms of like a webinar or like a networking thing coming up over the next year was like, or maybe we talked about doing like a guide. It was, you know, how to be a good ally to like the women in your community or the women in your workplace or, you know, that type of thing. Yeah, we're going to educate those men. Yeah, here it is. How to be an ally. So that is definitely, I think, an interesting idea to pursue. And again, somebody like feels ownership over that idea, like, please let us know, and we're happy to let you run with it. Yeah, other questions? As I mentioned, you know, I'm gonna post, oh, I think I see a hand, but where is it? Regan.
Hey, it's Reagan.
Okay.
I was trying to type this question out in the chat and I'm not exactly sure how to word it, but
Mhm.
I'm kind of interested to know if you guys have an idea of how many members are from larger, more like metropolitan areas compared to rural areas. I know for me, I'm in Southwestern Virginia and there's not a lot of people that are like official planners. I don't know how to describe it. There's a lot of people that are in positions that are either planning related or maybe the title doesn't say planner, but they're doing a function of a planner. And so, you know, one of my ideas is how do you engage or reach out to some of those, you know, women, especially who may not have access to or support from their municipality or employer to connect with, you know, like APA as a whole. But I'm just kind of curious what the like current makeup is, urban compared to rural.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is that a question that we usually ask? I don't remember 2
No,
years
but I
ago.
do have data on that.
You do for our
Yeah.
members.
Yeah, and I've got the current roster of the 1625 broken up. So the 10 largest growing states in the USA right now, adding California, because California is actually shrinking, with large metropolitan centers have the most planners. So our biggest states are California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia, each of them having over 100 division members within the division. The Midwest and the areas that normally have larger counties within their states, do you know what I mean? Like California has a lot of counties, Georgia has a lot of counties, but the areas with larger counties in the state normally have less members. We're missing almost the entire Midwest. I think there's some states in the Midwest we don't even have, like maybe South Dakota, North Dakota. Where are you from, Reagan? What state?
Virginia. I'm in the Southwestern.
Let me find Virginia. All the positions we have in here, they're all planners or students of planners. Like we have transportation planners. We don't have any plan techs. We don't have any plan reviewers, the ones that typically wouldn't be considered as a planner. We don't have any building officials. We have one nursing student, which I thought was interesting. I just wondered how she got, if maybe she switched. But Virginia, for example, you only have, you've got exactly, how many members do you have? You got 49 members, and they're mainly spread out between Arlington, Richmond, Blacksburg, and Alexandria, with the others in a few small places in between.
Interesting.
So we are missing the smaller. Most of our membership comes from large municipalities, MSAs, MPOs, the large urbans.
I'd be curious to like know how that breaks up for APA, like more generally, because it is pretty expensive. And I feel like, you know, if one, it's expensive if you have to pay personally. It's also very expensive if your municipality has to pay for it. And I would imagine that like a smaller community probably just doesn't have the budget for everybody to be even an APA member.
Yeah, that's a tough conversation to have because I work for my town is population under 3,000. Our town manager was the town planner for 20 something years, and she's
Okay.
forward thinking with, you know, professional associations and memberships. And so she's fully supportive, but when you're in a smaller locality like us, you know, I do the zoning, I do the planning, I do transportation work, I do plan management, code enforcement. So there's
Yeah.
some organizations that have these professional memberships that I'm like, hey, can I increase my budget this year? Because I want to join this one. And I may
Right.
participate as heavily as I want to because there's so many, but I like having access to those resources, the webinars, the newsletters, because it's very helpful for someone like me that the
Yeah.
nearest person that does what I do may be in Roanoke, which is 3.5 hours away, so, or in another state. So it's very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we go back and forth about like paywalling content because like, you know, typically I guess theoretically you wouldn't have access to it unless you're a member, but like one, nobody has time to like manage our division that way, quite frankly. And two, you know, I feel like there is a positive externality. So, you know, even if my dues are supporting somebody else's ability to access that information, you know, same with our newsletter, right? We have 4,000 people kind of, or 3,500 people on our newsletter subscription list and 1,600 members. So clearly there's folks who at one point were members, but aren't any longer who still get that information. So, you know, I think we do try to share. I know, I don't know if like small town and rural planning division has any good information on that breakdown. They might have more info. Yeah. Dora, I don't know that we have that like currently published anywhere, but we maybe after we do our survey this summer, we could do like a data visualization summary that we could post on the website. Other thoughts or questions? Well, if you think of anything, please don't hesitate to email. If you're interested in any way, again, please go ahead, fill out that form or shoot us an email if you have questions, if you think of something later, that, you know, reach out, let us know. And, you know, not just today, but like throughout your tenure as a member, if you ever think of something, we're here, we check our email, and respond to people. And I really appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day. This division does not function without the support of volunteers. We have great people who are doing a lot and could use some support. And I would like to try to provide some of that. You know, we're moving also towards a place where some of our more time intensive functions, I think maybe we'll be able to benefit from some outside support like our communications, you know, thinking about contracting with freelancers for things like that, just because I think we're at a point where we're asking a lot of people for free, quite frankly. You know, APA doesn't even give you a discount on your division membership for volunteering, which is my another personal bone to pick. You know, so I can't promise you much except that you know, it is a really great network of people, not just in the division, but like leadership. You know, we try to help each other out. I have gained a lot personally from being part of this group, and am grateful for that. So invite any of you to come into that, please. And yeah, I think that's it. Anything else? Other members? All right, awesome. Thank you all so much. And I hope to see you or hear from you soon. And have a great Friday and weekend. Thank you.